Good evening and welcome to the council meeting for Monday, January 27th, 2025. Please rise for the playing of the national anthem and a moment of reflection.
Oh, Canada. And I'll look to Councillor Lindahl to read the land acknowledgement, please.
The land on which council meets today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Attawandaron, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous peoples made up of First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement should remind us of our responsibility to ensure the territories on which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of the land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability.
Thank you, Councillor. Moving to number 1, the adoption of the agenda. I'll turn to the Deputy Clerk.
So just so everyone knows, in attendance this evening online right now, we do have Councillor Dodge and Councillor Townsend. The following amendments have been made to the agenda this evening. Item 10.2, presentation from the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival regarding festival outcomes, will be deferred to a future meeting. And the following items of additional correspondence have been placed in Council's Sugar Sync folder prior to the meeting. Regarding report CAO 005-2025, Appendix 1, a confidential memorandum from the Acting Director of LCS regarding legal considerations for creating a public space use bylaw in the City of St. Catharines. And regarding report FMS 015-2025, Appendix 2, a confidential memorandum from the Realty Assistant appraisal information for 8 Gale Crescent, 29 Riordon Street, and 6-8 Academia Street.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. I understand that Councillor Dodge and Councillor Townsend are joining us online at the moment, and Councillor Williamson will be joining us whenever he gets a chance to do that, and the Mayor will be arriving as soon as he can, coming from, I think he's in Welland right now, but he said he'd be back as soon as he could be. I'd like to request that Council consider a motion not appearing on the agenda regarding the RibFest sponsorship request. Per Councillor's Procedure Bylaw, Section M6.4, motions not appearing on the agenda can only be considered if Council votes unanimously in favor of considering the motion. If that motion passes, then Council will consider the matter under the motions portion of the agenda. And the motion reads as follows: that accordance with Procedural Bylaw 2024-155, Section M6.4, Council consider a motion not appearing on the agenda regarding RibFest sponsorship request, and I'd ask a councillor to move that motion. Councillor Kushner, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McPherson. Thank you. All in favor? I trust the two councillors who are online also voted in favor. Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended by council? Councillor Lindell, thank you. And a seconder for that motion, Councillor McPherson, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest tonight? Councillor Stevens?
On closed session 2.2, I'm past president of the Lions Club.
Thank you. And as a reminder, Councillor, you're requested to, or required to submit written statements of declarations via the online form if you haven't done so already. Thank you. Moving to closed session, I'm looking to the Deputy Clerk to read the reasons for going into closed session, please.
There are two items on the closed session agenda. Item 1, Municipal Works, Where's My Plow software training, closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 239, 3.1, education or training of members provided at the meeting. No member discusses or otherwise deals with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision-making of council. And item 2, from Community Recreation and Culture Services, Community Initiatives and Partnerships, Grantham Lions Club unsolicited proposal, Grantham Lions Park at 732 Niagara Street. Closed session pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, Section 2392K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor move the motion to go into closed session for the reasons noted by the clerk? Councillor Lindell, thank you. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Harris, thank you. All in favor, raise your hand. And the motion reads that council move into closed session for the reasons noted by the clerk. All in favor, raise your hand. And we'll now move into closed session.
And the meeting is called back into order in open session. We have motions arising from closed session. The first is 4.1 Municipal Works. Where's my Plow software training? Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Lindell, Councillor Phillips, all those in favor? Or sorry, nope, I have to look to the clerk to call a recorded vote.
Are we just waiting for it to open up there? Councillor Lindell,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes?
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
No.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff,
Yes.
Councillor Stevens,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Cisco,
Yes.
and that's carried.
Item 4.2, Community Recreation and Culture Services, Community Initiatives and Partnerships, Grantham Lions Club Unsolicited Proposal, Grantham Lions Park at 732 Niagara Street. I note that a declaration of conflict of interest has been raised by Councillor Stevens, so he will not be voting on this. I have a mover and a seconder in Councillors Dodge and Phillips, so I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Dodge,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes?
Councillor Ratzlaff,
Yes.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Lindell,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner, Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
and Mayor Cisco,
Yes.
and that's carried.
All right. Good evening to everybody. My apologies for not being here to start the meeting this evening. I happily was in Welland for a very good news announcement. The province of Ontario today announced that it will be opening one of the heart hubs, the homelessness and addictions recovery treatment hubs in Niagara. That was one of the small number of hubs that they were going to be opening up across the province. I believe the total grant is in the range of $18.6 million. So it's good news for the region of Niagara and something that I think we are all quite happy about. There'll be a lot of details coming out in the coming days from Niagara region, but kudos to everybody who's involved with the effort at the region and throughout all of our social services, including Gateway of Niagara, who led the charge. Some news and updates over the last couple of weeks. This month, we proudly recognize Crime Stoppers Niagara during their annual Awareness Month, marked by the ceremonial raising of their flag at City Hall. Flag symbolizes our collective commitment to fostering safer communities and highlights Crime Stoppers' vital work in protecting students, raising awareness about human trafficking, and preventing elder abuse. This important event serves as a reminder of the power of collaboration and the role we all play in ensuring the safety and well-being of everyone in Niagara. Councillor Stevens and I celebrated the grand opening of Specsavers' second location here in St. Catharines at Fairview Mall. Fantastic to see a company like Specsavers continuing to grow in our community, making affordable and accessible to eye care even easier for our residents to access. A big thank you to James Ranger and the entire Specsavers team for choosing St. Catharines. Proud to have you here, and we can't wait to see your ongoing success. Congratulations on this amazing milestone. 2 Fridays ago, I attended the annual Marine Club dinner, a fantastic event that brought together so many great people from across the marine industry. It was a chance to celebrate the successes of the past year and look ahead to the opportunities on the horizon. And I always like to remind folks just how significant the marine sector is here in St. Catharines and Niagara. Over 2,000 jobs are supported directly and indirectly by the marine sector in Niagara. Councillor Lindell and I had the opportunity to attend the St. Catharines Female Hockey Association's House League tournament, which brought 74 teams from across Ontario to our city, including a team all the way from Iqaluit, Nunavut. It was great to welcome the players, coaches, and families, and to see the incredible energy and sportsmanship throughout the event. A big thank you to the organizers for making it all possible, and a very big thank you to the young lady who gave me a hand-carved, personally carved soapstone Inukshuk, which is amazing and I will treasure for the rest of my life. It's absolutely beautiful. I recently had the chance to visit the grade 5 students at Ridley College as part of their unit on government. A great opportunity to talk with them about the role of the mayor and how local government works. The students asked some great questions and showed a strong interest in learning about local government. And a joke was made earlier by Councillor Phillips about being, elementary school principal with a bunch of high school teachers. I will say, and this is mostly just Councillor Lindell, it's amazing how wonderful the questions from grade 5s are compared to the absolute stone silence of grade 10s. I don't understand what it is. Grade 5s want to know everything. And grade 10s want you to walk away and never look at them again. I had the opportunity to attend the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative Roundtable session, which focused on climate and coastal resilience, as well as the blue-green economy. This session included discussions led by the Mayor's Commission on Coastal Resilience and presentations from Conservation Ontario and Climate Proof Coalition. It was an informative meeting that highlighted ongoing and upcoming projects aimed at climate adaptation and protecting our coastline, and was a good opportunity to engage mayors and wardens from across Ontario in encouraging them to become members of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. We recently celebrated the wrap-up of the 2024 Mayor's Reading Challenge at the St. Catharines Public Library, and it was incredible to see the enthusiasm for reading in our community with 198 entries this year. A huge thank you to the library staff for all their hard work in making this challenge such a success. Congratulations to Kim Bell, this year's winner, who read an incredible 39 books. Looking ahead, the 2025 Reading Challenge has started with 12 unique categories to explore, so stay tuned to my social media channels for more information about this year's challenge. The month of January is a month to explore new authors. And so because I have the opportunity to sit up here and talk about new authors, I would encourage anybody who is interested in the romance genre to check out our friend and former councillor, Laurie Littleton, whose debut novel, In Repair, came out just before Christmas. It's available at Someday Books and a couple of other fine locations, as well as, I'm sure, the library across the street. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight a local new author who is also a good friend. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to attend the annual Chinese New Year Gala along with Councillor Stevens. It was hosted by the Chinese Cultural Foundation of Niagara, which brought together over 400 attendees from across the Niagara region. The Housing Help Program of Community Care and the Homelessness Prevention Services, okay, that clearly ran into a different one. The evening was filled with cultural performances, traditional food, and a vibrant atmosphere to celebrate the Chinese New Year. It turns out I just hole punched the wrong side of the page. It was a wonderful showcase of the rich traditions and community spirit that make our region so unique. I had the opportunity to feed the dragons. So they did the traditional dragon dance, and I held a fishing rod or bamboo rod with lettuce at the end, which symbolized money. I was able to hold it while the dragon chewed it up and then threw it on people, which was incredibly exciting for me, but not so much for the people who had lettuce all over them. There's a couple of upcoming events I want to make people aware of. This February, Future Black Female, in collaboration with the City of St. Catharines, the St. Catharines Downtown Association, the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, and various community partners, is proud to present a vibrant Black History Month celebration under the theme Reclaiming Narratives of Black Resistance. This year's programming highlights Black voices, resilience, success, and cultural pride while reclaiming and honoring Black legacies. Don't miss the launch event on February 3rd at 11:30 a.m., a free and inspiring celebration of Black voices and stories. And from February 3rd to 28th, you can visit City Hall and the Performing Arts Centre for a powerful art exhibition featuring works by local Black artists. The next Town Hall STC meeting will be in St. Patrick's Ward and will take place on February 19th at the Armenian Community Center at 156 Martindale Road. The event will run from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., and residents are encouraged to attend their own wards of Town Hall STC event. However, they are welcome to attend any and all Town Hall STC events across the city. Pre-registration is recommended, and if you wish to speak at the event, please note this when registering, and you'll be given priority. You do not have to register in advance to speak, but you do get priority if you have registered. Visit stcatharines.ca/townhallstc to register. On Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, from 7 to 9 a.m., you can warm your head, your heart, and fill your tummy by joining Team Housing and helping support eviction and homelessness prevention in your community. We invite you and the whole family to join the Housing Help Program from Community Care and myself at Market Square in downtown St. Catharines for the 25th annual Toque Tuesday Mayor's Pancake Breakfast. The proceeds from the event will support the Housing Help Program of Community Care and the homelessness prevention services they deliver to the most needy and vulnerable in our community. Raising the Roof toques and baseball caps will be sold for $20, and a pancake breakfast is complimentary with your purchase. Cash, debit, and credit will be accepted. And finally, February 27th, you can join me at my annual State of the City address in partnership with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. This year's event will take place at Club Roma from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Lunch will be served, and for tickets, you can visit www.gncc.ca. I look forward to seeing everybody there. Are there any additions to the mayor's report this evening? Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On February the 22nd, the Meriton Lions Club will be holding their annual trivia night. It's in support of the Westview Center for Women, so if you are interested in coming, join Councillor Stevens and I at a table, and we'll take the whole thing.
Thank you, Councillor Lindell. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I just want to say the St. Catharines Library Board, of which Councillor Lindell and myself are members, is looking for a new member. Unfortunately, one of our members had to resign. So it's a great opportunity to get involved in the community. And I think all the information's on the city's website about how to apply for that. And I think for another couple of weeks at least. So if anyone's interested, check that out.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, today I was up at Brock University attending the 80th anniversary of the Holocaust. And Councillor Kushner was there as well. There was people speaking, first generation children of survivors and that were speaking of the struggles and that they had, and it was a good event to listen to, and you know, it's sad that it happened. And the theme for this year is for a better future, and the color of the remembrance is purple, since the purple tie today. So,
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, I guess, congratulate and thank the staff of the Niagara Grape and Wine Festival for putting on their annual ice wine gala, which was held a week ago Saturday at the Niagara Parks Power Plant. There was approximately 1,000 people who attended, and it was a great, great evening to show off local wines and local foods from the various restaurants in Niagara. So I just want to thank them for that. And they also, at the same time, were helping Niagara on the Lake conduct their Ice Wine Festival. So our staff did an excellent job over that weekend, and I think they're still paying for it because Dory Anderson's not here tonight because she's ill. So, but it was a good event.
Perhaps a self-induced illness, who knows? Item number 6 is adoption of the agenda, adoption of the minutes. The council adopted the minutes of the regular council meeting held on January 13th, 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Stevens, Councillor McPherson, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Motion to move the consent reports. We did have one item on the consent agenda that we are moving forward. Councillor Lindell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if we can move item 8.2 to discussion.
So item 8.2 will be moved to the discussion agenda. Is there anything else to be moved? Seeing none, can I have a mover of the consent agenda? Councillor Harris. All those in, nope, I'm going to look to the deputy clerk and allow him to tell us what we're voting on.
There are 3 items on tonight's consent agenda. Item 8.1, Office of the CAO, authorization for the St. Catharines Municipal Development Corporation to act as the agent on behalf of the city. Item 8.3, Office of the CAO, development of a public space use bylaw. Item 8.4, Legal and Clerk Services, Office of the City Clerk, bylaw to manage and regulate election signs. Approval of this report will refer the matter to the meeting of February 10th, 2025, where council will consider the staff recommendation. And as the mayor just noted, item 8.2 has been moved to discussion. So on the consent agenda, Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Could I have 8.1 excluded as well?
Okay. So we now have a request for 8.1 to be moved off of the consent agenda and onto the discussion agenda. So at this time, so everyone is aware, the consent reports that we are voting on is 8.3 and 8.4. Okay? We will begin the roll again.
Councillor Dodge, did you have something to say?
No, sorry, I was just reading the numbers on my agenda, sorry.
Okay. So Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Counselor Williamson,
Yes.
Counselor Dodge,
Yes.
and Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
That's carried.
All right. The declaration to all presenters. Council chambers is, in all municipalities in our country, represents the seed of local democracy. The many acts that govern us understand the necessity of our collective voice when decisions are being made to grow our spaces, pass our bylaws, and to seek opinions into very complex issues, ensuring safe spaces for all in our public discourse. We recognize the right of the majority to decide, the minority to be heard, the public to have an opportunity to participate, and all participants to be treated with courtesy and respect. It is imperative that elected officials, citizens, and staff have input, and it is paramount that we listen to one another and question one another, but that we understand we do this in a way that never undermines any person's ability or their dignity in our chambers. We respect the right for everyone to have an opinion and remind the audience views of the public do not always reflect those of the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines. There are no public meetings this evening, so we will move on to item 10.1. Presentation from Bill Schenck regarding the post-wrap-up World Rowing. I'll now call upon Bill Schenck from St. Catharines World Rowing to present. Mr. Schenck, once again, the lectern is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's always a pleasure to come back and speak in front of council. I didn't prepare a slide deck for tonight. I thought I'd just come up and talk to you and talk about the World Rowing Championships that were held back in last August. And so as a summary of the events, I'd like to first start off by thanking the mayor and the councilors as well as the city staff for going above and beyond to make the event the success it was. And so without the support of the city staff, I'm not sure where we would end up. We didn't do everything right. We made some mistakes along the way, but at the end of the day, I think the mistakes or the things that didn't turn out, most of the public would never realize what happened, and so we covered that off very, very nicely. So I begin, it's hard to believe back in 2019, at the World Rowing Extraordinary Congress in Linz, Austria, that with the help of city staff, we put forward a world-class bid. Through this, St. Catharines was selected to host the 2024 World Rowing Championships here in St. Catharines, beating out another good bid from Linz, Austria. Indeed, August of 2024, we showed the world that St. Catharines could put on a first-class championship that all involved would be very proud of. There were many events held during, before, and after the event, and so I just, some of the highlights of that. I think we kicked it off with a one-year-out event, and we held that down at the Neil Campbell Training Center just to try and get people motivated about the event. I think most people will realize that the Bare Naked Ladies concert that we held at the Meridian Center was a huge success, a sellout event for us. We ran a golf tournament at Thundering Waters that we reached out to a lot of the community members to support with gifts and donations, and so that went over extremely well. We had an opportunity to honor a lot of the local people who've been involved in rowing for a long time. And so we hosted an event at the Performing Arts Center, and we had Stephen Page as the entertainment for the night. That event went over extremely well, and I've had a lot of the people, the recipients of those awards, come up to me afterwards and said, we've never had an event where all the different rowing people across the region have been recognized for their efforts in rowing in the community. We also had an opening ceremony, and the opening ceremony was held at the University of Brock. And because of the weather, we moved the event inside. The gymnasium at Brock was filled to capacity. The stands were all full. There were people standing everywhere. It was an extremely moving event for me to speak in front of that many athletes and the local people that came out to kick off the event. And so it's one of the events that I'll remember as a legacy from the 2024 event. During the event, we had a fan fest in Rennie Park, and the fan fest had entertainment in the evening, and I'm sure I saw some of you people that were down there enjoy a little ride on the Ferris wheel, which attracted quite a few people. At that event, as well as all the other events, we worked with Food Share Niagara, and so we partnered up with CAA, First Ontario, Electra, to address the needs of the people in the community. So at every event that we had a collection package where people could drop off food donations, or we were able to collect money. During the event, we also ran some social events, and so for the people out of town, so we could showcase what Niagara had to offer. And so we worked with the 63 North group to host the umpires, all the out-of-town umpires that come across the world at Queenston Mile for an evening of entertainment. The press from out of town were welcomed at Niagara College to try the different opportunities that they showcase at Niagara College. And again, another event that was extremely successful and paid great dividends. Some of these things aren't always happening at a lot of the World Championships. And so again, people were very grateful for the opportunity that they had to go out. We worked with the people in Niagara Falls at the Niagara Falls Marriott overlooking the falls for a reception for all the world rowing people. And so we had a buffet dinner that was served to showcase the national federations and all the dignitaries. We were also partnered up with the Niagara region on this event to bring in delegates from Toronto, from various areas. And so again, another highly visible event that was very well enjoyed by the people. In fact, one of the people in the group decided that they wanted to take a tour, so then they all left and took a whole busload of people and walked down to the brink of the falls just to experience the falls firsthand. So again, that's an opportunity that we were able to showcase for them. Wherever possible, we worked closely with the local suppliers, whether it was Niagara College for the video production, to Niagara Airbus for transporting the athletes from the airport and back and forth from the university, the Regional Transit of Niagara for transporting our spectators, the local Niagara Region EMS, St. John's Ambulance. We partnered up with Sport Niagara on the event, and as mentioned, all the athletes stayed at Brock University. Just a few of the local people that we were able to bring in to be part of this event. Large events like this take a great number of volunteers to make happen. And this event was one of the events where we required a lot more people than we normally would have had for a rowing championship. And so I think we tallied about 750 volunteers that came out, and we had a core group of leaders who worked with our volunteers who are second to none to make sure that everything came off without a hitch. And so we did have one day of inclement weather that we postponed rowing, and as a result of that, the athletes had used the bus transportation that was available and made arrangements to either go to Toronto or to visit Niagara Falls on their own or do some shopping in the area. So again, although we missed a day of rowing, I think that the athletes much appreciated the opportunity to see what was going on around the area. We'd also like to tonight thank our funding partners, the Sport Canada, Sport Ontario, the City of St. Catharines, the Region of Niagara, as well as all of our local sponsors and the companies that supplied gift in kinds for this event. And as we all know, that we can't host events such as this without the support of the whole community. At the end of the day, I have been working with 2 local donors to make up the loss of funds that we incurred for the event. And so for these individuals will be named at a later date, but without the support of local community members stepping forward to assist in the funding of this event, there would have been a loss for the event. I'm happy to say tonight that all the bills for the event have been paid, and that there will be no one left unpaid for this event. So very grateful for those donors. It goes to show that without additional support from the government, and so we understand that governments don't have to support events, but again, we were hoping to receive at least the same amount of funds that we received in 1999. That didn't happen, and so we had to make some major adjustments to our budgeting for the event. And so at the end of the day, we had a shortfall, but that is now being covered. We look at the positives that happened from the event, And so without hosting a championship such as this, we would never have had a state-of-the-art finish tower. And so again, we had donors come forward. We weren't eligible for funding for the new finish tower, but a legacy piece that will be here for years to come for all the athletes to make sure that the racing that's done on the Henley course is done fairly. We worked with our partners at the Niagara Home Builders and the Niagara College again, and so we have a new aligners hut to make sure that when the boats are at the start line, they're all lined up correctly. We also, without an event such as this, we wouldn't have been able to purchase all the fiber optic cable that we need so that we can have communications and video broadcast for future events. So just some of the legacies that have been left behind from this event, which I would say that's what makes this event very successful. I just want to read a couple excerpts from World Rowing. And so after the event, on behalf of World Rowing Council, we'd like to sincerely thank you for your support and dedication to the organization to a very successful 2024 World Rowing Senior Under 23 and Under 19 Championships. You and your organizing committee invested a significant amount of time, energy, and know-how in providing a world-class facility and ensured a high-standard regatta. Additionally, we would express sincere gratitude for your creativity bringing the festival concept to the spectators. The side events, concerts, food trucks ensured a vibrant atmosphere that enhanced the overall athlete and spectator experience. Once again, thank you to the organizing committee, volunteers, and local partners for providing such good environment to the rowing community. We hope that St. Catharines will continue to stage world rowing events in the future. And so again, thank you for listening to me. I'm open to answer any of your questions that you may have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Schenck, for the presentation. I believe Councilor Williamson, the voice in the sky, will be first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Bill, and I know it's the mayor's role to thank you and all the volunteers that pulled off having a very complicated international event. There's lots of moving pieces, and there's only probably a handful of people, including yourself, who know all that's involved in making it happen. And I'm not at all here to rain on the parade because it was a great event. There's a couple things I have heard. Well, one thing you didn't have control over, and that was the performance of the Canadian crews. And hopefully the next time around, we'll see more Canadian crews involved and and more actually on the podium. So that's one thing. And the other criticism I've heard from some corners is in terms of and I guess it's a related issue, is overall affordability to get into the event. And it would have been nice to maybe open up the bleachers on Rennie Island to public at potentially lower ticket prices. So maybe that's something that we could look at when we host it again, and hopefully we'll both be around for that to happen. I don't know if that's something that you'd consider, Bill, or?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Williamson. Yeah, we did take a look at that. When we set the pricing for ticket sales for the event, we looked at what we charged in 1999, and we thought that we could hold those prices for the championships in 2024. But apparently that in 1999, people were willing to pay that price, but in 2024, they weren't. And so again, we were disappointed on the numbers of people that showed up for the event, and we felt that we did everything that we could to attract the community to come out and support it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Williamson. Councilor Phillips.
Just to echo what Councilor Williamson said, Bill, thank you very, very much on behalf of council and all the citizens of St. Catharines for the work that you did, because I firmly believe that without your effort, it wouldn't have happened. Now we have a world-class facility, as you've mentioned. Where do you see this going? What's next for the Henley course other than next year's Henley? Do you see another international event coming up soon?
Based on the current format that's in place, I think it's going to take a little while. We didn't get the support from the different levels of government that we need to host an event like this. And so without that support in the future, it makes it very difficult. World Rowing also understands, I was at a meeting last week with the World Rowing people, and they also understand that the cost of putting on these events. And so they've been working very hard in the background for the last 3 months of trying to change the format that they're using for the events. They're looking at cutting down the number of days, cutting down the number of races and the events that are part of this event. So with the continued work that they're doing in behind the scenes to see what they can do to reduce the cost for these events, it may make it possible in the future. We do have opportunities. The coastal rowing or beach sprints is an opportunity that's taking off, and so it will be in the Olympics for the first time in LA. And so there will be an opportunity. There's been some events that have taken place at Lakeside Park already. It's turned out to be a very good facility to be hosting those types of events. And so there is opportunities going forward in the future to try and do something like that. They're also looking at other ways that they can attract more events to the Americas, because right now it's European-centric, and that most of the events take place around Europe. And they're looking to draw more events and make it more meaningful that countries have to attend events to qualify for the World Championships. And so in doing that, between Canada, the US, and South America, they're trying to put together a series of events that would enable crews to qualify to be at the World Championships and then on to the Olympics. So there will be opportunities going forward. It's just at the present day, I can't tell you when that may be or when that opportunity will arise.
Thank you. You sure showed that you know how to throw a party.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Are there any other questions? Right, I will note, Mr. Schenck, I'm almost positive I heard you volunteer there to help bring future events and then run those. I'm the look on your face right now, if it looks could kill, I'd be a dead man. I'm going to echo, and I appreciate Councillor Williamson loves doing that, pointing out that normally it's the mayor who congratulates people and then going and doing it, but I appreciate that. On behalf of council and the community, Bill, I just want to say thank you. You deserve far more than just the gratitude of the community for the work that you put in. It's appreciated. And just know, I think everybody who had the opportunity to attend knows exactly how hard this event was to put together and what an absolutely spectacular job you did. So on behalf of the city and of council, congratulations, well done, and thank you for the presentation this evening. And if I could suggest.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come in and speak again tonight.
Definitely. And I hope you don't have to come back and speak to us again for quite some time. For your own sake, because I don't ever want that look back at me again. All right, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation? Councillor Harris, Councillor Phillips, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We move on now to the discussion reports because 10.2 from Grape and Wine was deferred to a future meeting. 11.1 regarding the indoor pickleball facility has been deferred to a future meeting, so we'll move on now to 11.2 in Economic Development and Tourism Services Niagara Industrial Association. Prior to the discussion on the report, I will look to Brian York, Director of Economic Development and Government Relations, for some introductory comments. Mr. York.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the past 18 years, the city has served as a proud founding member of the Niagara Industrial Association. It was actually a group that was sort of born out of, well, it was born out of a trip west in an effort to drum up some business to the oil sands. So a lot of Niagara businesses gathered together, manufacturing business, and said, hey, we need to speak with one unified voice. And our community, St. Catharines, is home to nearly 300 manufacturing businesses. So it's certainly a priority in the council-approved strategy, the economic development strategy. And tonight we're joined by Niagara Industrial Association's Executive Director, Mr. Jordan Sherlock, who I'll ask to head up onto the podium to provide a brief presentation on the history of our partnership, the history of his organization, and the benefit to Niagara.
All right, Mr. Sherlock, the lectern is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Brian, for that intro. I noticed you said the word brief in there, so that I'll take that hint and try to be brief in my presentation and figure out how this clicker works. That's always the first challenge. There we go. So my name is Jordan Sherlock. I am the Executive Director of the Niagara Industrial Association. My whole career prior to this was primarily in manufacturing here in Niagara. I had a brief stint in construction in between that, and I'm so passionate about this organization that I decided to take on a full-time job that was offered to me. So it's been It's been a great ride for about 6 months for me in this role. I'll just go through some of our kind of high-level mission, vision, and value statements here. So our mission is to be the voice and hand of industry in Niagara, attending the collective challenges and goals of our members. As Brian mentioned, we were born out of kind of an accidental get-together of some remaining manufacturers after a bit of a mass exodus of manufacturing here about 30 years ago. So our vision ongoing is to preserve, promote, and develop industry in Niagara to ensure its future vitality. Again, as was mentioned, we have been around since about 2008, 2007, 2008. We are a not-for-profit organization, and our operation is 100% membership-driven, with a focus on supporting the interest and growth of manufacturing here in Niagara. Our mandate and focus centers around providing value to our members first and foremost, and we do that through the ongoing focus on 3 strategic pillars. I don't love that term, but I think you get what that means. Network, resource, advocate. That's kind of what we do. The oil sands event back in the early 2000s was really the catalyst behind this endeavor. And since then, we have grown tremendously in all 3 of these areas and continue to provide value to our sector here in Niagara. Quick overview of our membership structure and cohort. So primarily, our representation is of local industrial members. I'll get into some numbers on that in a minute here, but we also have non-local industrial members, so outside of the region. Those are very strategic, few and far between. And then we are supported by associate members or service members, so those are your banks, insurance companies, consultants, and other trade associations and chambers of commerce. And then last but not least, our favorite group, of course, government and education, ECDEV departments, of course, our educational institutions. They all fit into that cohort as well. Very supportive on that front. This is a very grainy photo. I apologize for that, but a little bit about our numbers. These are last year numbers. You'll be happy to see that St. Catharines makes up the bulk of our membership at, it's probably closer to 90 now. We ebb and flow in terms of total numbers, but somewhere between 250 and 300 is a pretty fair estimate for a general membership size. As you'll see here, and as Mr. York pointed out prior to, although we're happy with our size of membership, we have a total number here in the region of over 650 manufacturing firms. What was the number for St. Catharines, Brian? 200 and something?
295.
295, so we've got some work to do. But you can see here, and these are all numbers from the region, the size of the sector here in Niagara and how much it contributes to our total GDP, as well as workforce and labor size. I won't read all of these out, but you get the sense that 22,000 people, the 650 plus businesses, and the number that I like to highlight, especially to councils and ECDEV folks, is the majority of those businesses are very much in that small business category. So 1 to 50 employees, less than 10 million in revenue is kind of a general classification. And that's important to recognize because businesses of those size have certain capacity limitations and resource limitations that need to be factored into decision-making economically. And something else that I'm sure is of interest to this group and kind of the talk of the town is export interests and export values. So we export around $7.5 billion to other countries, and with what's going on currently, that's a critical thing to continue to explore and look at. Subsector makeup within manufacturing. Niagara is interesting because to me, it's a good and a bad thing. Many other regions have kind of 1 or 2 sectors that represent or make up the majority of a larger sector. We don't necessarily have that here in Niagara. We have a bit of everything, which is kind of cool and has its advantages. Heavy machining to marine, which was discussed earlier. We have robotics, aerospace, chemical manufacturing, plastics, so a little bit of everything. Which, we're always asking ourselves at the NIA some of these questions below. in terms of the offering that we provide to our manufacturers, because you can't really take a one-size-fits-all paintbrush approach. So, who are we? What are the needs? How do we kind of provide something to everybody? We're currently talking about some of these issues here off to my right. Succession planning and business transition are key topics right now with our aging population. And at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that we don't see kind of another mass exodus of manufacturing happen here in the future. You'll notice EV up here as well. Is this pointer even? I'm pointing at my screen, folks. I apologize. Here you go. I don't know how we can translate that, but I know what I'm talking about. You'll see EV with question marks here. EV is kind of a new and emerging sector. Obviously, the province has thrown a lot of money and investment into that space. It still remains to be seen in terms of what that looks like, but Niagara has been earmarked as a bit of a hub for that sector. So some trends and challenges that we're seeing as an association and representation of our membership is consolidation of businesses, lack of succession planning or business transition strategies. We have kind of what I call a legacy ownership group, primarily making up our manufacturing owners. They don't necessarily have a plan for what the next generation of their business looks like. Business attraction, we are seeing a ton of this happening right now, which is great for the region, but how do we deal with that as these new businesses come into town? Our labor pool in trades and manufacturing has been a critical focus for the association since day one. How do we encourage parents and youth to get into the skilled trades? How do we partner with our school boards to make sure that the programming and curriculum is suiting the training behind skilled trades? Investment by the government, of course, is an ongoing thing. We've had a lot of it from the provincial and federal levels in 2024, which is fantastic. We want to keep that moving forward. Internal training programming, we're seeing that happening in a lot of businesses kind of as a result of not being able to facilitate needs through traditional means. So by that I mean where there used to be large pools of youth coming through, say, the community college programs, we're not necessarily seeing that. So businesses are taking on their own internal training programming. Geopolitical concerns, I don't have to get into that. We all know what they look like. And then all kinds of operational challenges, many of which were born out of COVID, supply chain disruptions, tariff threats, wage rate increases, global competition, land scarcity, et cetera, et cetera. So how can our partners help? I look at St. Catharines ECDEV and this council and city as being key partners to us for the last nearly 20 years now. But I'll just reiterate a couple items here that I find to be helpful as we talk about how can we succeed together. So know and understand your local industrial businesses. I think that's critical, getting to know them one-to-one. Eliminating bottlenecks wherever possible. We talk about things like development charges. We talk about things like permitting and site plan applications. These are things that small businesses do not have the time to spend weeding through and trying to figure out. So as much as we can remove some of those bottlenecks, recognizing simply that the sector is vital on an ongoing and perpetual basis. Sometimes we forget about manufacturing. We're not at the edge of the street with big shiny signs out there. We're kind of behind the scenes oftentimes doing what we do. So it's our job as the NIA to make sure that we're continuing to be recognized as a vital sector here. CIP programs and development incentives are very critical, I believe, personally, for our members. Development charges, which I already touched on, and invest in land with an exclamation mark behind it. Land is scarce. St. Catharines especially, I know, has kind of a scarcity challenge right now, but anytime there are opportunities to get that land both secured and protected as zoned employment use, I think is critical. We know residential is something that is encroaching a little bit on our space, and we want to make sure we protect that. Finally, here's the fun part of the presentation, just a few pictures of some of our members, many of whom are in St. Catharines. Stubbies and Ontario Shipyards, formerly Heddles. Really cool facilities. If you haven't had a chance to get down there, feel free to walk around the dry dock at some point. It's pretty remarkable. HOPA, obviously the multimodal hub up in Thorold there has been a huge area of industrial growth over the last 3 to 5 years and continues to grow. Last I checked, they are at 100% vacancy in the property, which I believe is 400 acres or something like that, 600 acres. Hamel Machine, CCTT, which is the trades college in Fort Erie. The old high school has been renovated to be a trades college primarily for international students. Very cool facility. They've retrofitted all of the shops. These are some welders. Here, I'll point the laser at the right screen this time. We got some welders over there learning how to weld. Very impressive. Diltz Piston and Girardi, two St. Catharines companies that you probably know. And then, of course, we had the announcement with Asahi Kasei back, I guess, almost a year ago now was the first announcement, and they broke ground back in November. Very exciting opportunity for the region. Also a lot of challenges in terms, especially of where the bodies are going to come to fill that factory. INEO, formerly GE, up on the 140 in Welland there. And that's it. So these are, I like to show those pictures because those are good examples of what's going on in our own backyard. And like I said earlier, I think we can often forget that the sector is vital here. We are growing. We actually grew as a sector throughout COVID, largely because we were able to remain as a critical industry. So that's a little bit about the NIA. I'm happy to take questions and answer what I can. Thank you for your time otherwise.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Sherlock. We have Councillor Stevens first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. Yeah, I know firsthand, my son is a machinist right out of high school, and now he's been there for 14 years, and he's actually managing the shop. So is there still really good incentives through the colleges? I know when he went to his apprenticeship, like, we paid next to nothing. And then there was incentive every year for him to get grades. He got money back. And by the time he graduated, he ended up getting back more than he paid to go to school for those 3 years. Is that still offered by the government for young people looking to do that?
Bad gig. I always say through you, Chair, that if I could go back, I think I would have gone into the trades because it's pretty lucrative. The short answer is yes. The college is a strong partner, if we're talking about Niagara College, of the NIA, has supported and continues to support a ton of our local businesses. They are challenged right now with some of the things that have come down kind of provincially and federally that are impacting their business model. But a lot of their challenges, and the answer is yes to the incentive piece, but I just want to speak quickly on some of the challenges, and again, where we can help to collaborate is around, let's create needs from local industry to facilitate changes to their business models, their strategies, so that we're not experiencing brain drain and we're keeping people who are trained at Niagara College here locally. We have had challenges, I will say, with the college and with what I'll call the output of students coming into industry for a variety of reasons, which I won't get into right now, but we're mandated and motivated to continue to work on how we can bypass some of those bumps in the road that we've had in the last few years and really start at the post-secondary, so, in public schools and high schools, start there with encouraging folks like your son to get into the skilled trades and incentivize them in monetary ways, but also in terms of just kind of value in general. That, as I said earlier, has been a very strong mandate of the NIA since literally day one. So.
Yeah, I think people don't realize the fact that, because we relied on big businesses like General Motors and that for so long, that there's so many small businesses that employ 50 or less employees, and they're all good paying jobs. And they're hidden amongst the city, with a lot of them in industrial lands in St. George's Ward, by the way. There's quite a few there. So it's a good area to be in, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Stevens, just for clarity, your son's at Girardi Machine?
No, Niagara Precision.
Awesome.
Niagara Precision,
Right
thank
next
you.
door.
Actually, and I will just say, for those who've never met Councillor Stevens' son, terrifying, spitting image, exactly the same face, exactly the same build. It's worrisome, actually, the first time you meet him. But you have no doubt what family he's from.
Yeah, very.
Councillor Kushner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've referred to the tariffs, and I guess you're working on them, very worried. But the question I have, what about tariffs between provinces? How will that affect you if they're reduced?
Yeah, good question through you, Chair. It's tariffs are interesting. This, my phone has been ringing off the hook for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and this sounds very cliche, but my advice is let's see what happens. Let's wait and see. But it's funny how this has stemmed a conversation that's kind of, reversed itself and is going back downstream, in my opinion, where to what you just mentioned, Councillor, there has suddenly been talk about interprovincial tariffs, which hasn't really been on anyone's radar screen in a big way for a long time. So, I'm happy that those conversations are happening. They will have an impact, much like the federal situation with the U.S., but I'll go even a step further down where there are what I would frankly call, we impose our own tariffs locally on our businesses through things like taxation, development charges, permitting. There are all kinds of things that we have more control over here locally than we ever will in terms of what's going on in the States right now. I would encourage all of us to kind of partner to work on efforts to solve some of those problems. And then, yeah, a layer up for sure would be at the provincial level, because I think those are areas that we have a lot more control over. And if you ask a lot of our local businesses, I think they would say that'll have a bigger impact on them than the big picture, which is, global trade. Right. Definitely an impact. About a third of our total manufacturing sector here exports, which that's a huge number on 650. So we have to take it seriously. But the interprovincial, I think we're going to see some impact, hopefully in the positive, on addressing that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kushner. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will just echo the comments that were made about skilled trades and encouraging our young people to get into skilled trades. I know that's been a focus of the NIA as well as provincial government, the federal government. There's a lot of talk about it. I will say, and this has always been my selling point, I had the joy of being a high school physics teacher who taught a lot of college-bound kids who were going into the skilled trades. And I always tried to say to them, and especially now it's even more poignant, if you want an AI-proof job, one that's not going to be replaced by an algorithm or a computer system, go become an electrician. AI is not going to rewire my house. Go become a plumber. AI is not going to fix the plumbing issues in my house. It's not going to set up HVAC. It's not going to become a machinist. Like, the reality is those jobs are AI-proof, and the quicker people start to realize that, I've also said these are jobs that are going to pay very well in the future, because the gray tsunami is being felt nowhere more greatly than in the skilled trades. And as people retire, there aren't young people right now coming up to replace them. So I would strongly encourage parents, it's course picking time for your kids in high school, and it's university and college program picking time for your kids at the end of high school. Be very cognizant of the fact that a very good life can be had if you educate yourself in the skilled trades. And I see I kicked up the ire of Councillor Lindell, so I'm going to let her have the last word.
As the head of the technological education department in a high school, I just also want to mention to all students and parents, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program is a fantastic program for your kids to get out and test a skilled trade and understand just how much work it is, but how much joy they can get in the trade as well.
If I could make one final comment on that, because thank you, Councillor, that's a great point. And there are other programs as well, within that that can mitigate a lot of the cost implications for businesses. But I will say, to leave on a positive note, in my experience, I've been an NIA member for 12 years, in industry for a long time. I will say I'm sensing a turning of the tides. You can kind of sense that with parents, with young students. I go to a lot of not trade shows, but job fairs and trade fairs, and some of the ones at high schools here in Niagara. And the amount of interest, I was at one at E.L. Crosley maybe 2 months ago, and it's the most interest I've had from students kind of approaching us and asking questions about the trades and what kind of jobs, what kind of companies are here, where could I go work? And parents coming as well and asking those questions. I think we're seeing some of the change. We're partnered very strongly with the DSBN and the Catholic School Board here, and their interest in putting programming together and partnering with us to make sure that we're working collaboratively together is better than I've ever seen it personally. So fingers crossed, we need those bodies, so thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Sherlock. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation? Councillor Stevens, Councillor Lindell. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Can I get a councillor to move the recommendation in the report? Councillor Kushner, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that report EDTS 012-2025 Niagara Industrial Association be received for information. Are there any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Kushner? Yes. Waiting for voting mode there.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner? Okay. Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
Yes, and take tech.
And Mayor Cisco?
Yes, and join the skilled trades. It's fun to have high school teachers in the horseshoe, isn't it? 11.3 Financial Management Services Billing. Amendment of parking bylaws in the 2024 to 2026 schedule of rates and fees regarding Lockhart Point parking lot. Prior to discussion on the report, council will hear a delegation from Jack Shoemaker. Mr. Shoemaker, I hope I pronounced your last name properly, and the lectern is yours.
It's a lot different than it's,
So did I say it right?
no, that you said it right, that's how I pronounce it, but it is Dutch.
Okay.
Schoenmakers, I didn't think you'd want to go through that.
Oh, I would have said Schoonmacher.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councilors. My name's Jack Shoemaker. I'm the president of the condo board at 57 Lakeport, also known as Royal Port. We are requesting that the city add the Lockhart Point parking lot in at our condo to the private parking bylaw. I guess it's 89-357. The transfer covenants allow us, the condo, to charge for parking so long as we match the city rates. By adding it to the parking bylaw, it allows the city to issue the tickets when there's a non-compliance of parking, and using that method as opposed to us hiring a private entity like a towing company is it's preferred by the condo board and the residents for that matter. It's a little too onerous when people get towed away and have to go get their vehicles out of hock. Under the agreement that we've come to with city staff, we will retain the parking revenues and the city will retain any enforcement revenue. Those revenues will go to offset our annual maintenance and repair, replacement costs of the parking lot eventually, which has been a serious concern of our board and the residents. We've heard it numerous times from our residents that they're not happy that we've got the public parking in our parking lot, and we're receiving no revenue to offset our costs. It's mainly used by St. Catharines residents and other visitors. There's a lot of staff and patrons that are going to the restaurants and other venues in Port Dalhousie, downtown Port Dalhousie. They park there because they're aware it's free, and they don't want to pay at other spots. A lot of fisher people who are coming out to fish use our parking lot quite a bit, and as well as some of the Dalhousie Yacht Club members at times in the summer. Our annual snow plowing costs can be up to $10,000 annually. We paid $3,200 in the month of December alone to keep the lot clean and clear of ice. And on a daily basis, our superintendent has to clean up the mess that's left behind when people come, from the beach and whatever, leave their garbage in on the lot, so he's out there cleaning it up, so we incur that cost as well. Our asphalt repairs are estimated to be in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $15,000 every 5 to 7 years. And the replacement cost, when that has to happen, is probably in excess of $150,000. So we're just looking to offset those costs as best we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir, for the presentation. Do we have any questions? Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, through you. Thanks for the presentation. I read the letter and the report. I think it's important that we always remembering that parking costs money. That parking costs money, right? And someone has to pay for it. And so I assume that's the primary concern, that the condo board is spending a lot of money maintaining these parking spots, and that's being used by residents of the city, correct?
Residents of the building.
Yeah.
We have our own parking spots down below.
Yeah.
That we've all paid for.
Yeah. No, I just want to point out that fact. I think you did a great job demonstrating and describing the different costs associated with a parking lot. Because we've had a lot of discussion around this horseshoe about how much parking costs or doesn't cost. And yeah, so thank you for that. And yeah.
One further point, sorry. Part of the agreement is that we will match the parking rates that the city charges.
Yeah, that's great.
That was in the report, but yes.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ratzlaff. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the presenter, I mean, I'm not sure if you were involved back when this was all originally discussed, but I believe, and you might not be the right person to answer it, there was always supposed to be an agreement with the city, and that didn't come to fruition. So now it's coming to council.
My understanding of the original agreement between the Rankin Company and the city was that the city would charge for parking and we would get 50% of the revenues.
And the revenues would help maintain it.
What's that?
The revenues would help maintain it.
Yes, and so that never took place, which is why we're
perfect. Thank you.
This avenue now.
Thank you.
Councillor Stevens.
Quick question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. In the report, so there's 10 parking spaces that the Legion has?
Correct.
And they don't pay for that, right? Like,
No,
that
will still be free. It's
right.
the 30 that we own.
And then, but if it no longer becomes the Legion, then it would revert back to the condo and.
Correct.
Okay, I didn't want to have any angry Legionnaires yelling at us that they had to pay to park to go visit the Legion.
They also have, I think, another 10 to 12 parking spots in the parking garage below.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions or comments for the presenter? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to receive the delegation? Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Phillips. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And I will now call upon Lisa Reed, the parking supervisor, to provide introductory comments. Ms. Reed.
Yes, so good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight I just wanted to provide you with a visual and a summary overview of the recommendations that are before you this evening for approval. As shown on the map on the screen, Lockhart Point is comprised of 52 spaces, 40 parking spaces owned by Niagara North Standard Condo Corporation 342, which is outlined in yellow. 12 of those parking spaces, which are shaded, adjacent to the condominium building, which are shaded in yellow, and the 10 parking spaces are reserved for private use of the patrons of the Royal Canadian Legion 350, which are shaded in red. 30 of the 40 at-grade spaces owned by the condo board are subjected to the restrictive covenants and must remain accessible for public purposes. The condo board has been providing, as Mr. Shoemaker had said, to the city without any contribution towards maintenance, and the burden of the costs has been paid by the condo owners. They're requesting that Lockhart Point be added to the city's private parking bylaw 89357, which allows them to charge for the use of the parking spaces, which is equal to the city's rates for parking, municipal parking. As he mentioned, the revenues generated from the collection shall be utilized to fund the capital asset, which means the maintenance, repair, and replacement costs for the parking lot. The city will enter into a parking agreement with the condo corporation to enforce those parking spots. The city will retain the enforcement revenues, and the enforcement of the 10 Legion spaces will be the responsibility of the Legion. The 12 parking spaces adjacent to the condo are owned by the city, and to ensure equity and fairness to the public, staff are recommending that those spaces be added to the municipal parking bylaw, 89305, Schedule A and B, to allow for collection for its use and by law enforcement. The condo board is charging fees year-round based on the city's current parking bylaw to align with the paid parking on Lakeport Road and Lock Street, which is shaded in blue on the screen. In the months of October through to April, it'll be charged from 9 till 6 p.m. and during the months from May to September, from Monday to Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So we're to remain consistent with the board. The staff is asking to align the 12 city spaces within the Lockhart point to the metered system on Lakeport and Lock Street. And we're also recommending that we keep the 3-hour time limit to allow for more patron turnover. And one last note, at the council meeting of September the 9th, Councillor Garcia did request to bring forward a report on adding the 24-hour parking restriction to Lockhart Point. The city does not have the ability to impose a 24-hour restriction, as the parking lot is owned by the condo corporation, and any restrictions would be in their decision as the owner. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that concludes my overview comments of the recommendation.
All right, thank you, Ms. Reed. Can I have a councillor move the recommendation in the report? Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Stevens. Right, so the recommendation is on the screen. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I come at this with a fairly long historical perspective, and we have to recall that Anchor Point was publicly owned land, recreational piece of land, and parking that had been used for people coming down for recreational pursuits and fishing. It was also used extensively by people attending the Legion, including Legionnaires going to events at the old Legion building. When the sale of the city-owned land at Lockhart Point came up, I didn't support it. I'm always a supporter of maintaining public green space, particularly waterfront lands for civic recreational purposes. And my understanding when the lands were sold to the condo developer is that at minimum, we would maintain the parking unencumbered by price. That probably wasn't written into it. I'm not sure that I knew about any covenant that was in place at that time. Possibly it was, and I understand the arrangement. It's not fair to ask the condo board to be paying for maintenance and snow removal and other costs related to public parking. So I understand that needs to be a financial agreement put in place to do that, and I would hope that the proceeds of these charges, just offset the actual costs to the condo corporation of maintaining those spots. My big concern is, though, events at the Legion can be a lot longer than the 3-hour time period, and I suspect that it may harm the operation of Legions, and Legions and service clubs, as we know, are often in financial tight straits and are trying to run events, et cetera, to keep the lights on in these facilities. So what I suspect, and we all understand that parking does cost money. And I know how my good friend Carlos felt about this, and he would not have been, I don't imagine, supporting this. But what I'd like to see is if we could put a provision, an amendment to review this after a year or 2 years, if that's possible. So my question, Mr. Mayor, would be through you to the director, the treasurer, in regard to, would that be something that we could do? I apologize, I didn't think about this earlier and bring it up earlier, but is that something that we can look at?
To the treasurer.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Staff had intended to report to council through our regular variance updates on the revenues that the city does generate from this arrangement. So we will be reporting on that. If a separate report is required, we could also do that.
So would there be flexibility then at that point to make some alterations to it? If we agree to what's in this recommendation tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I would perhaps have to defer to our assistant solicitor with regards to the draft agreement that has been developed between the condominium corporation and the city.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the councillor. The intent here was to enter into a parking agreement that would govern the operation of the parking lot. There was, there would have to be some changes to the draft agreement to allow for, amendments or, perhaps imposing a term upon the agreement or something of that nature that would allow for renegotiation after a certain period of time. Currently, I can say that that's not in the agreement, but that's something that would have to be negotiated with the condominium corporation. We'd have to agree on something like that.
Well, I'd like to see that if that's possible. And one other question is, it's come to mind, have we been in communication to the Legion? Did they understand the impact that this could have on the fish fries and other events that they hold?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I had spoken to the Condo Corp, and they've had a couple of discussions with the Legion. They do support this to a certain extent. They do realize it could have an impact on their business, but they weren't opposed to it. It's an entirety. We asked them if they wanted to be part of the honk, to have them monitor the honk spaces, and they declined that. But if I can go back and say, with regards to the agreement, are you asking with regards to the Legion spaces if there can be an amendment to those ones, or in the lot in its entirety?
The lot in its entirety, because in reality, people, there's not enough Legion dedicated spots to handle the demand for the people that attend Legion events. If that could be looked at before this is signed, sealed, and delivered, I'd appreciate that. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To staff, the parking permits that residents currently purchase to park in the city lot down there, is this considered a city lot and that parking pass would be able to use there, or no? These are parking spaces, or is there a difference?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're referring to the residential beach passes?
Yes.
They would only be valid at the lakeside lot.
Okay. And then a question in the report here, something like what Councillor Williamson was saying. It says, should the NNSCC 342 lands not remain publicly available for a period of 10 years from the date of registration of the restrictions, the penalty would be $1.5 million was the fair market value of the land. What exactly does that mean? Is that for who? Is that for us? Or I don't understand that 100%.
Mr. CAO.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's a restricted covenant, and it's on the condo corporation. It's part of the development agreement to be able to maintain the public use as part of the transfer of lands. So when it was being built.
So if they weren't going to let us use it publicly, then they're going to have to pay us $1.5 million? Is that what it basically is?
Essentially, yes.
If they wanted to take those parking spots back, they would have to pay the city.
Yeah, and that was in response to maintaining the public spaces for the use of the general public.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Harris.
Actually, I don't have any questions.
All right. All right, seeing no more questions or comments, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Stevens,
Yes.
Councillor Townsend,
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff,
Yes.
Councillor Phillips,
Yes?
Councillor Miller, appears as though Councillor Miller is in the waiting room right now. So I will come back to him in a second. Councillor Lindell,
Yes.
Councillor Kushner,
Yes.
Councillor Harris,
Yes.
Councillor Dodge,
No.
Councillor Miller,
Yes.
Councillor Williamson,
No.
and Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, we now head to item 8.2, which was pulled from the consent agenda. That's financial management services, property management, declare land surplus, 8 Gale Crescent and 29 Riordon Street, and transfer of 8 Gale Crescent, 29 Riordon Street, and 6 to 8 Academy Street to the St. Catharines Municipal Development Corporation, Realty File 25.001. Can I have a mover and seconder for the staff recommendation? Councillor Harris. And I'm going to say Councillor Miller because he's our other MDC representative on the board. Councillor Miller, you're fine with that?
Yes.
Excellent. At this time, are there any questions or comments related to this report? Councillor Lindell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After reading the report, and I also want to thank Ms. Justipovich for answering all my questions today. She's been very patient and very informative. But I'm not comfortable giving this much city land over to the MDC with the thought of maybe something will happen and we can get it back. I'm wondering if everything that we might be able to do with this land has been explored. I'm not comfortable with it going and then us finding out, well, maybe we need to use this land for something else and then we have to get it back. I also was wondering, through you, maybe to Mr. York, have we actually had a conversation with the residents on Gale Crescent? Maybe not because we would be able to do what they wanted or whatever, but to see what their vision is of what's going to happen with that property, because they put up with an awful lot lately.
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, I don't believe any conversation's been had with the neighboring community, but I would maybe defer to, actually Margaret's not here tonight, who did work on the shelter. But I will, I'll try to alleviate some of your concerns and reconfirm that there is a reversionary clause built in the recommendation that allows the municipality to, you saw that through Margaret's response today. There's no finality around this. There's still an opportunity. Well, should a deal not be realized, the city could own the land again, as the report illustrates.
And maybe that's part of my uncomfortableness, is that there's no finality around it. Maybe I can ask if we can, I don't know if I can or not, please, I'm stumbling through this. This is the first time I've done this, but maybe I can ask if, Mr. Mayor, if we can maybe go back and maybe have some conversations with the residents of Gale Crescent and then bring it back. I don't know, so.
So, Councillor, I'm going to jump in just for a moment because I think it's important to point out, like this was the purpose of the MDC. And these properties were identified from the very beginning as the most particular properties that are most appropriately handled by the MDC. It's always been understood with the Gate Cliff site, specifically on Gale, that it was going to be some form of residential redevelopment, recognizing the housing crisis and everything else that we're in. So it would still be subject to all of our zoning bylaws and all of the other regulations that we have with literally any other development that we would have anywhere in the city. The difference here is we would be transferring control of the properties over to the MDC so that they can properly market the property, identify possible joint ventures that the city may be able to enter into through the MDC. So it would be going through the same process as any other piece of land in the city that's in that situation. There's not really a mechanism, like what you just described, we don't really have a mechanism for that. In this case, if you wanted to pause, it would require a referral back to staff, but if we do that, we have a fairly short timeline with the Municipal Development Corporation, given the possible changes in government and the way the funding is structured. We have a short timeline to try and make something of this venture. And these are the properties that previously have been identified as the most well situated to be used by the Municipal Development Corporation for this type of redevelopment activity. So it would have to be a referral, and you've spoken to it, so you can't do that. So it would have to be another member of council referring it back, but there would have to be very specific direction as well as to what we want to do, because as I said, the process you just sort of asked for doesn't really exist, because we don't do it on any other properties.
Okay. I'm still not comfortable for it, so I'm not going to support it. I understand what you're saying, and it's very good.
Yeah.
But I'm just not comfortable with that right now. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I was having some conversation with Councillor Lindell. So I guess I think what she was trying to get at too, so, I mean, there's been rumors for years that, well, we're gonna need a new Station 1 fire hall. And one of the rumors has always been, that's a big chunk of land, whether we use part of it or whatever, and did some kind of new fire hall, and whether we put housing on top or whatever. But the thing was, so if we give it to the corporation and then we decide we do want to build a fire hall on that property, does that mean we have to buy it back from the corporation, or can they just give it to us? I think that was what.
No, no.
No, that's where I think where that was.
No, I understand, and I'm telling you no.
Okay.
And I want to remind everybody, we are the sole shareholder in the corporation. Okay. So it's still ours. It's in another vehicle, arm's length corporation, that is doing the work for us. But if we wanted the property back, we can do
so
that.
If council decided we needed it and we had a use for it, then we could
Yes.
tell them, and hey, we want it to do
Yes.
this. Okay, and I think that's what kind of council was looking at, right? So, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Phillips.
As far as the MDC is in negotiations with the intent of the use of this property, if a decision is made with a developer that is okay with the MDC, before anything is signed, it comes back to council for approval, correct?
I'm going to look to who wants to handle this. Mr. Oakes, Mr. York, just to walk through the process. Ms. Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start and I'll look to my other colleagues to fill in the gaps if so. But essentially, the Municipal Development Corporation is set up specifically to negotiate and deal with the identified properties specifically for housing development. This is all tied back to the Housing Accelerator Fund being funded primarily and wholly by the federal government. In the situation, when the lands transfer and it goes to the MDC and there is a deal that's in place, that goes to the board, Municipal Development Corp board, which the mayor is the chair and staff are representative on that. That decision then becomes part of the deal structure, and then it would move forward. Where it goes to council in terms of if it reverts back or if we want to acquire properties, that all would need to have council approvals. But because council is a sole shareholder, part of the process of setting the MDC up is to transact properties for that purpose of housing. So if some other use were to come forward that doesn't meet that mandate, that would have to go back to council. But if it's for strictly housing, it would stay within the corporation.
So for example, if you negotiate for all intents and purposes, a 60-story tower with commercial underneath, and it was acceptable to MDC, that decision doesn't have to come back to council for approval.
Well, what you just described would, because I don't believe it's zoned appropriately, so we can't just approve it. Like, it still has to go through the exact same approvals that any property would.
Right.
But if it fits the zoning of the property, similar to any other development. You know, if it fits the zoning and fits the official plan, well then no, it wouldn't need to. But that would be the same case for any property in the city by any developer. If
Right.
it doesn't require a ZBA or an OPA, then
Right.
we never see it.
Okay.
So it's subject to all of the normal restrictions that any property redevelopment is. The difference here is, to Mr. Oakes' point, if at some point council decided, oh, well, we require that plot of land that we had transferred control over, we require that for a fire hall, well, then we take it back. And that's, we can do that because it's still our property. It's just an arm's length corporation.
And of course, councilors are invited anytime to speak with members of the MDC to express their preferences as to the use of the property.
Always, always. And truthfully, I mean, members of council are always welcome to come to the MDC meetings as well. They move relatively quickly, but they are, you know, fruitful and interesting if you're interested in the direction we're trying to take the MDC. I think it's a good thing for councilors if they're interested to come out to a couple of meetings and just see what we're talking about. Councilor Kushner. Thank you, Councilor. Seeing no other questions or comments, at this time, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Williamson?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
No.
Councillor Kushner? Councillor Dodge?
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
And that's carried.
And then we will move to item 8.1, which was pulled by Councilor Kushner. That's Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, authorization for the St. Catharines Municipal Development Corporation to act as the agent on behalf of the city. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the staff recommendation? Councilor Harris, and I'm going to ask Councilor Miller and Councilor Harris on this one, so both members of the MDC board can get in on the fun. So it's moved and seconded. And are there any speakers to the motion? Councilor Kushner, your mic is already open.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be consistent and not support the concept as I have in the past, because to me it's another level of bureaucracy. We've got the staff here that can do it. We've got our development office, which is very good. I know they're short one real estate person now, but when we do hire, I think that's more than sufficient to have that work done by our staff without an arm's length organization, which is very costly. And I'm also concerned that when you form an organization like that, they'll make themselves feel important by suggesting that we buy properties. They want to deal in properties, and I think as a city, we should not be buying properties unless they're needed. And when the GM lands became available, I heard chatter about City Council buying some of those lands, and thank goodness we did not. And I'm very careful about that, and I like to leave it in the hands of the people that have been democratically voted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kushner. Are there any other questions or comments with respect to this one? All right, seeing none, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Miller?
Yes.
Councillor Harris?
Yes.
Councillor Dodge? That was yes?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Williamson?
No.
Councillor Townsend?
Yes.
Councillor Stevens?
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff?
Yes.
Councillor Phillips?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Lindell?
Yes.
Councillor Kushner?
No.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, moving on. We have item number 12, motions, the Ribfest sponsorship request. Moving this, I have Councillor Phillips. Seconding the motion, Councillor McPherson. Motion is on the screen. Are there any speakers to the motion? All right, seeing none. Oh, wait, I do have one. Just one sec, Councillor. Councillor Harris?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to, I guess, I don't know who would actually, a lot of times when you donate to charities, they provide you with an impact report of what that $15,000 went towards. Could we ask for that as part of the donation or the sponsorship or whatever?
I think we could make that as a friendly amendment, asking for an impact report at the end of it.
Perfect.
Okay.
I'm not sure who would, yeah.
That can be accommodated. All right, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Phillips.
Well, Rotary has been a big supporter of the community, as we all know, and this is their, I believe their, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, 25th annual Rib Fest. And these events have struggled to get people to attend, and because it's the 25th, they want to make it something special. And as I said, they do tremendous work within the community. This is a one-off. This is not, we're not saying we're going to give them $15,000 every year for the next 25 years. This is just for this year. So I support this. It can come out of one of our reserves. It won't come out of the operating budget, tax stabilization fund or civic project fund, whichever. Tax stabilization, I guess, might be the best. And we wish them well. So I'd ask council to support this.
Excellent. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I just wanted to express my support. Former Rotarian here and have been volunteering for the last 10 years. It's a great event, and we'd certainly love to see some more councillors slinging suds in the beer tent with me next year. And I'll just say at this price, this is like we could have 6 of these for one by-election, which I think residents would really appreciate. So I think it's good bang for our buck here.
Councillor Miller, I appreciate your ability to never miss an opportunity. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, I will look to the clerk to call the roll.
Councillor Phillips. Yes. Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Ratzlaff.
Yes.
Councillor Stevens.
Yes.
Councillor Townsend.
Yes.
Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
Councillor Lindell.
Yes.
Councillor Kushner.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Dodge.
Yes.
And Mayor Cisco.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, 13, call for notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion for the next meeting? Seeing none. Report requests? Seeing none. Can I get a mover and a seconder to file the minutes from committee and task force? Councillor Harris, Councillor Stevens, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bylaws. The bylaws listed on the council agenda as A to L be read a first time, considered and passed, and they be signed and executed by the mayor and the clerk. Mover and seconder, Councillor Lindell and Councillor Ratzlaff. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. The additional bylaw, that the following additional bylaw A be read a first time, considered and passed, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2014-67, entitled a bylaw to establish a system of administrative penalties respecting the stopping, standing, or parking of vehicles in the city of St. Catharines. One reading with respect to correcting an administrative error. Council, July 27, 2020. Item number 6.1. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Harris, Councillor Lindell, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Stevens. I'm just going to go with Councillor Kushner because he likes these ones. All those in favor? Opposed? Go Eagles.